everyone. I'm Wes Schroll, founder and CEO at Fetch Rewards, and I'm so excited to be here today with Doug Martin. He's the Chief Brand and Disruptive Growth Officer for General Mills. And this week, we're also super excited because Fetch Rewards and General Mills are celebrating the launch of Good Rewards, a brand new loyalty experience that's going to live within the Fetch app and will bring it to the over 15 million monthly active users that exist today overnight. For us, Good Rewards provides an opportunity to really showcase the full portfolio of General Mills brands while engaging consumers and building loyalty for them. And for our shoppers, they're going to have basically more ways to save money on all of their favorite General Mills products. So to kick off this amazing partnership, we thought it would be a perfect opportunity to sit down with Doug and talk about the program, why it's important, and how it relates to the bigger issues that the overall CPG and retail industries are facing. Doug, thank you so much for taking the time and welcome.
Wes, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation. We're pretty excited about the Good Rewards program. It's a big deal for us, and so happy to chat with you about it.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. Can you tell us just a little bit more about your background and what all you do with that amazing title at General Mills? I'm guessing it encompasses a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my background is that I've been at General Mills for 17 years in the brand management function. And so, leading brands and businesses across our organization. And then for the last year, I've been the chief brand officer, so leading our marketing communications teams, and the disruptive growth officer. So we've also created a set of capabilities to create new businesses, new business models, innovate a little bit further from our core, and that's what's incorporated in the disruptive growth part of my job. But a super fun job bringing together a lot of the ways that we're going to grow with consumers, and so been super invigorating. And it's interesting, I was thinking just before this conversation, my background prior to General Mills was I was actually in the retail industry, and I was a buyer at the Gap in their online division at a time when the online was completely separate from the stores. And the conversations that I was having then, 2000, 2002, were, wait a minute, who is ever going to buy clothes online, right? People love to go into the store, they love to try things on, and this is never going to work, and you're kind of wasting your time. And so obviously that didn't pan out the way that some people expected. And now being in the grocery industry and watching this industry digitize, it's invigorating, and it's also just repeating a pattern of the consumer is always looking for more convenience. The consumer has never said no to more convenience, and I think that's part of why I'm super excited about the Fetch relationship.
And what I love about just like hearing you talk about your role and how that kind of brings together not just multifunctions, but also across all the brands. I feel like for decades throughout the consolidation phase of the CPG industry, so many of these CPGs were talking about all of the benefits of bringing these brands together, like brands, and they can have meal occasions. But yet it's been so hard to actually bring that to life for an end consumer. So to even have companies thinking as progressively to combine both the disruptive technologies like online shopping, like you were talking about, with this whole thesis that's always existed that there's a power of bringing these brands together, to actually start to deliver on that and have a person focused on that makes so much sense to me, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and what is possible if we start from the standpoint of what is the consumer problem, right? And then how might we address that? I would say one thing that's very important as a baseline for people watching this to think about why is Fetch such a good fit for General Mills is that, General Mills, we consider we're a house of brands, right? We don't come to the world as we are General Mills and these are all the things that we do. We come to the world as Cheerios and Nature Valley and Yoplait and Progresso and Pillsbury. And so, that in and of itself is fundamental to our belief that the power is in the brand of what people consume. But it does create a challenge in leveraging the power of our portfolio because the average consumer doesn't even know that these things are connected. So I think what Fetch really does a great job of for us is making it easy to delight consumers by connecting these dots and then reward them for that. There's so many consumers. I'll tell you, the average household that's enjoying Yoplait yogurt is not super different from the average household enjoying Lucky Charms or Pillsbury. And Fetch, it just provides that moment of like, oh, I didn't know that was also included. What a delight for me to be rewarded for this behavior that I'm already doing. So I think that's really bringing together the power of our pretty diverse portfolio.
So if we follow that thread and rewind back a little bit, from your perspective, tell me a little bit more about how that Fetch partnership with General
Yeah.
Mills kind of came to be. And I think you hit on some of the key points that we're both excited about moving forward. But if you rewind back, what was the parts that got you excited, that got the organization excited, and how it really started?
Well, I think, we've actually been experimenting with Fetch for a couple of years now, and it came in through the shopper marketing team. And I think the initial conversations were, okay, this is interesting. This seems like a really efficient way to deliver a promotion to a consumer. We should just try it out. But it was very much through the silo of shopper marketing. I think the transformation for us was to think about it more holistically across our portfolio and what might be true if we made a more significant investment and move forward. And I think, the thing that really, I would say two things really made a huge difference for me. Number one is what I just talked about. It's that, like, we have such an ability to connect the dots between these households and these purchases, or even within a household. If you take a look at across all of our categories, I think we're in something like 93% of US households, but none of our brands is even close to that level of penetration. So it was the ability to connect the dots and think more about how this could move the big picture story. And then the second part was, this is a platform that is really built for and designed for brands to win. And the ability to have access to this really sizable and quickly growing and engaged group of consumers in a context where you can say, yeah, and in fact, Nature Valley is going to be the granola bar. And the way that in that early experimentation, we saw that the Fetch ecosystem was really meaningfully driving loyalty within a category, that really changes the mathematics on making a bigger investment. So I think that's what we're really excited
I
about.
think a couple of those key points that really resonate with me and honestly make what I think my job so fun is General Mills, 93% penetration across all of those brands. And for us, that means it's a pairing made in heaven, because like that is our whole
Yeah.
job, is to bring incremental value to the consumer base. And I don't think we would be able to sustain this large of a consumer base or be able to grow this fast. I mean, if you just last week, by the time this is airing, we had a day where we added one consumer sign up every second of the 24-hour period of days. And that's because when you go into the app store and you download the app and you're seeing these brands, they're everyday brands that you're like, wow, if they're
Hmm.
meeting me here on this platform and just going to simply reward me, when yet the other group in this category isn't, it's a no-brainer then. So I just love how like
Right.
we win together on this, and then to be able to leverage a portfolio that is already so similar, to just bring it to life for someone without them having to actually think about it, I think is just why this is going to be such a successful extension to the partnership when we go ahead and when we do launch Good Rewards here.
I do too, and it's funny because we started out this conversation. You mentioned the 15 million monthly active users. It's a different number every time you and I talk, which is really exciting. I'm pretty sure it was 14 the last time we chatted, and 13 the time before that. But I think getting to the point of like, what problem are we trying to solve? There's a lot of problems to solve for consumers right now. One of them is that the world keeps getting more complex. And the consumer is thrilled to see, they want brands to come together and work together. They want things to be easier. They want a single porthole or portfolio entry point into more significant rewards versus, managing it in 10 separate places. So I think that is very much in line with the consumer behavior that we are seeing. And then, of course, we can also talk at length about what's going on in the macroeconomic environment right now. The average U.S. consumer is seeing significant increase to their monthly grocery budget, and the monthly grocery budget is just a huge portion of the discretionary income of people. And so that value-seeking behavior is critical right now. When in California, a gallon of gas costs more than what the minimum wage is for an hour. So again, as Fetch continues to add partners, it creates a rock rolling down the hill and gaining momentum. And I just think of the consumer experience, if someone who's been on since, a couple of years, going to the grocery store and being like, oh, I didn't know that I got credit for that too. So that momentum is carried by the experience getting better and better. And that scale, obviously, within the way that people find things in the app system or whatever, it comes with the momentum as well. So it's just driving a virtuous cycle to drive the app up into people's
Yeah,
awareness.
no, really well said. I mean, the sheer number of problems and challenges that your everyday household is facing is staggering. And, by working together, we can solve or at least help to start to alleviate some of those. I think it's a worthwhile endeavor and one
Yeah,
we can feel really good about. But that's on the consumer side. Now, I know obviously on the CPG side, there's also a lot of new and emerging problems. Some have actually been here for a long time, and then some are really heightened right now. Can you tell me a little bit more about some of the key problems that you guys are focused on that you're encountering right now, and how you think this partnership might help to alleviate some of those?
absolutely. I think a lot of the CPG problems are actually they're reframes of the consumer problem. So I mentioned, hey, the consumer wants to simplify their world. There's a million different touch points. That's obviously a problem for the CPG marketer as well. The world of, let me make one great commercial and one really tasty coupon to put in the papers and let my plan run. Like, obviously that's been gone for a long time. So the scale and the digital connectivity that Fetch can provide is a big answer to that consumer problem. I'll say a second one, which might be maybe a little bit more removed for people, but everybody, like when my mom knows that there are supply chain challenges in the United States, this is common knowledge, right? Like it is a big issue for the CPG marketer, just managing ingredient availability, keeping the product on shelf, available for the consumer. What's nice about Fetch versus, like, imagine the world where you're in your Sunday insert coupons. If we run out of an ingredient on product X, it's much easier to impact the incentive and say, actually, I'm sorry, but this crescent roll over here is the one that you really want to try. That's awesome. And then, the last thing I would say is that consumers obviously don't live their lives within branded categories, right? They don't have a level of expectation for the digital experience they get from their yogurt versus the level of expectation they have for their granola bar, or from, when they go spend $45,000 and purchase a Toyota. They have one level of expectations. They expect brands to solve problems. We talk about solving problems and delivering joy. And some of those problems are really big, right? Like hunger or regenerative agriculture. And some of those problems are everyday problems that bring with them quite a lot of emotional relevance. And the one that we are always working on is like, it's 4 o'clock, it's Thursday afternoon, that's about what time it is right now. My God, what's for dinner tonight? Right? That is a really salient emotional problem for a lot of parents in the United States. And like, we've been able to do great things with Fetch where it's like, well, hey, we make the crescents. Why don't you also get some shredded cheese, some pepperoni, and some marinara sauce, none of which we make, but there's dinner. There's 4 ingredients, there's dinner. And when we do things like that, what we find is people buy all 4. And that's a solved problem for the consumer. That allows us to show up to the retailer and say, you know what? We are driving volume across your store. That's great. That's partnership. And it puts our brands in the position of again bringing solutions. And that's joy when that little crescent dog with pepperoni in it or whatever shows up on the table at 5:30 that night. That's a real moment of branded joy for our
And
consumers.
didn't cost you an arm and a leg to get those ones together,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And you didn't have to worry about
And it's
trading down
affordable.
to a product you didn't want to have to. You can still feel great bringing home the top brands back, and feel good about it. Feel like you're being responsible financially, but you're also still providing the best for your family. And I think that's really important. But one of the key things that you said there that I'd love to stop on for just a quick moment is you said you could turn around and show even the retail partners that, hey, we're
Yeah.
raising the boats for everyone right now. Attribution has been something that for me I never thought about as a consumer, but having spent
Mm.
a number of years now, almost a decade, believe it or not, in this industry, I was always shocked by the fact that at no fault of anyone's, the data has never, like, everyone talks about data and why it's so important, but very very few times, actually I don't think ever, have you been able to take a platform that has daily active engagement and like a
Hmm.
consumer opting to come in and engage with brands and have communication advertisements kind of served up to them as like the use case of an application, and the data of what that consumer is doing across all of these different channels, since we know households shop across a lot of different channels. And the beauty of doing that is you have the ability to communicate and try to influence behavior, and then the ability through like test and control holdouts and things like that to actually then prove here's what happened exclusively because of what we were doing here. And I'm guessing that's unlocked a lot, and just something that I've been hearing from a lot of our partners is still new and gets them excited. It's like, yeah, it's a channel that we have conviction has a good ROI, and therefore, of course, we can spend more and give
Absolutely.
more savings to consumers. So, yeah, any other thoughts that you have on that? I know we've talked about
A lot of thoughts, but I would say one CPG industry challenge is that we don't own that final transaction occasion, right? So I'm always jealous of like the McDonald's of the world, right? Where they put a piece of communication out into the world, people show up to their store, complete a purchase, and they can connect those dots very clearly. And so Fetch is one of the ways, by the way, that coupled with, we are, if we're being honest with ourselves, a bunch of people in CPG who like to believe that there is a knowable, specific, and finite answer, and there's data out there if we could just get after it. So if you take those two things and put them together, Fetch is doing a great job of allowing us to have conviction that activity A resulted in outcome B, and we know it because we were able to, like you said, have holdout groups, trace the activity of these consumers, and then we can apply that to broader lookalike audiences, et cetera. So, there was a person who said, I don't remember who it was, but someone said, data is the new oil, and that became a thing. And it's very true. But the thing that I like about that in particular is that just like oil, data on its own is
it.
useless, right? Oil coming out of the
It's a
ground, good luck
natural
doing anything with it, right?
disaster,
You
if
got to
anything.
find it. Yeah, you got to do something, but you got to put it into a state that's useful to you. And there's just data coming out of our ears, but the fetch data is quite usable and useful, and that's what makes it so powerful.
The final thing that I just wanted to unpack from when you were talking about some of the problems that are being faced by CPGs in the world today is you made an or you were comparing that the experience that a consumer is expecting when they spend
Mm.
$3 on a brand versus $45,000 on a truck from Toyota. I think that's so true. The digital experience that they're expecting is at a quality that I don't think it's ever been at before. And you have companies that are making
Yeah,
this more applicable to the masses. iPhones, which used to be a very small portion of the overall phone usage, are now huge in the US. Like it's 50-50 with Android even.
yeah,
And that quality of software is something that's become expected. But to be able to expect every individual company to go and build hundreds of engineers and product folks who day in and day out, data engineers who do all these things is probably just not realistic, especially to be able to keep up with the ever-changing consumer, demands and taste profiles. So when you have a company like Fetch with 740 employees who are only focused on developing that tech. I'm guessing that was another one of the conversations we had of why, hey, doing this ourselves versus joining up with a coalition
Yeah,
who's doing this, it's just going to allow us to move faster and be there for the consumer.
that's absolutely right. And I think there were two things for us. Number one was there's power in the coalition because it's more rewarding to the consumer, right? Like if if we can bring Ernest and Julio Gallo into the mix, let's do it. That's wonderful. That makes it so much more impactful. That's one part of it. But I think the other thing that we had conversations around is that when you decide something's important to your business, one of the things you're going to have an early conversation around is build, buy, bar, partner, and we are not fundamentally a native digital company. And if you think about the pace of change, or even the way that you're getting decisions made or business done through the company, we felt like a company like Fetch, digitally native, the number of engineers, et cetera, is always going to be better than us at creating this and maintaining a cutting edge digital experience.
And I think that's, yeah, the maintaining is such a key thing because there's so many, you can get a great flash in the pan that we've seen loyalty programs that have been out there before that they'll get 20, 30 million signups, but very quickly when you look at monthly active users a year or two later, it's down to hundreds of thousands. Versus when you highlight
Yeah.
someone like a Starbucks who's, been the world class, loyalty program, they have hundreds of engineers working on that, and that's the power of doing it. But that investment can't be replicated across everyone. There's too much repetition there, and yeah,
No. And I think that it's a couple of companies who have said, actually, this is our business model now, right? Our business model is digital. And like Starbucks, right? Obviously, Starbucks owns that final user experience in the store, which I think is what, and that enables to connect all those dots. That's very different when you're General Mills and it is the Walmarts, the Krogers of the world where that transaction is actually taking place. That's a pretty high hurdle.
absolutely. So, two last questions to kind of round us out. You've been very generous with time already, but just really want to kind of hear your thoughts as we kind of zoom out for a second. So, at a very macro level, why do you personally believe that digital innovation is just so important for brands like GMI? And again, like you said, doesn't mean you have to build it all, but like, why is that so important to
Yeah,
get that strategy right?
I would say super simple, simplistic answer, but for me, it's two things. Number one is beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is the way the consumer is moving, and that's the consumer's expectation. And that consumer expectation is going to be a continuously rising bar. Okay. So, this is how a consumer wants to be interacted with. If we want to be relevant in their life, we're going to have to show up digitally at the moment when we can solve a problem or deliver joy, period. I think the second thing is, and we talked a little bit about data before, there's such a secondary benefit to the digital engagement in that it helps us to understand our consumers better constantly. And like we talked about how many households we're in, oftentimes if you go back into the past, we would have no way to know that. And so now what we can do is understand, actually, if I'm seeing more of your purchase behavior, then I'm getting a better understanding of your lifestyle. I'm getting a better understanding of your consumer journey. And therefore, I should be able to find better, more delightful ways to solve problems and deliver joy for you. So it is really about the businesses that most deeply can understand the consumer and connect those digital insights. I 100% believe are the businesses that are going to thrive and grow in the
And I
future.
think it's a proven model before. We've seen it with a lot of the tech companies that have come before. They understand a key problem, they focus and obsess over the consumer experience. I mean, Amazon's a great example of it. They're just obsessed with that
Yeah,
consumer experience, and because of that, it's like I want to bet against them in any category they go into. Is that
right.
mindset is freeing, and now because of companies like that, expected from consumers. So it's almost you got to be playing at that level at this point.
Absolutely. We talk about like modern marketing is creating something an offer of value, making it feel like it's personal, and then reducing the friction to purchase as much as possible. right? And so that's where partnerships like this are so important to us. But your point on Amazon is exactly right. I don't think there's anybody in the world who does a better job of reducing the friction to purchase. Right, they are obsessive about how seamlessly can I get you from this to buy, and constantly iterating on
Absolutely.
that.
And showing you relevant things that you're going to want to buy next and reducing the
Yeah.
amount of time you have to spend looking. I mean, across the board, it's all about reducing that time. As you said, the level of effort, consumers don't want more things to think about. So the more you can reduce
Right.
it, the better. So to wrap us up here, I'd love to just kind of pose one very large question, which is, what's next for GMI, and maybe even if you extend that, any predictions that you have for where the CPG industry is going, since I'm guessing those two are somewhat related to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the shorthand for what's next for GMI, we have always been a company that has been built and founded around our understanding of the consumer. Now, if you go back in time, that was literally Betty Crocker getting letters from housewives during the Great Depression saying, "How can I stretch my grocery budget?" But those were the insights that we built the company on. What's next for GMI is to continue that in a digitized and personalized world. And we talked a little bit, and it came up a couple of times. In fact, we don't own that final transaction, and we don't have an intention to. What we intend to do is show up better than the competition at the right moment, solving a problem, delivering joy wherever they're shopping and in their journey. We are going to partner with our customers, the retailers, and you can tell right now there are retailers that are doing an incredible job of understanding shopping behaviors across modalities and getting better acquainted with their consumer. And we just want to be the set of brands that is positioned to and working to win in that environment. So, no major predictions here. We will see winners and losers in the brand and the retail space, but ultimately the winners will be defined by their knowledge of their consumer and their ability to act quickly against that knowledge. That's actually probably often the toughest part. So how do we continue to work in a more agile fashion, go from annual planning to weekly planning to keep up with the pace of change in the world and the pace of change for
I think
consumers?
it's beautifully said. And at the end of the day, while I'm not being asked for it, it goes right along with my prediction, which is the consumer is going to be who keeps winning. I mean, everything you just said,
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
will benefit from this,
Absolutely.
and it will become an easier experience, a more rewarding experience. It will make life easier. You're going to have things to know what to cook for dinner, all of these little pain points. And we're going to move towards hopefully giving people more time and resources to spend on the things that they care about the most, family time, things like that. So it is inspiring to be working with a partner like General Mills. Doug, thank you for your leadership, for the partnership. We're so excited for the journey we're on together and to really deliver this for consumers everywhere. So thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Well, Wes, I really enjoyed it, and I'll tell you, I'm excited about the partnership, and I'm 100% convinced that we are going to drive value for consumers together, and that we're going to drive value right back to our businesses in the process. So
It is
it's
a
going to be
win-win. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Have a good day.